My Neighbor Totoro is a 1988 Japanese animated fantasy film written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki and produced by Studio Ghibli. The film Euro, which stars the voice actors Noriko Hidaka, Chika Sakamoto, and Hitoshi Takagi. Euro tells the story of the two young daughters of a professor and their interactions with friendly wood spirits in post-war rural Japan. The film won the Animage Anime Grand Prix prize and the Mainichi Film Award for Best Film in 1988. The film was released on VHS and laserdisc in the United States by Tokuma Japan Communications US subsidiary in 1993 under the title My Friend Totoro. In 1988, Streamline Pictures produced an exclusive dub for use on trans-Pacific flights by Japan Airlines and its own world partners. Troma Films, under their 50th Cent Films banner, distributed the dub of the film co-produced by Jerry Beck. It was released on VHS and DVD by Fox Video. Troma's and Fox's rights to this version expired in 2004. The film was re-released by Walt Disney Pictures on March 7, 2006 and by Madman on March 15, 2006. It features a new dub cast. This DVD releases the first version of the film in the United States to include both Japanese and English language tracks, as Fox did not have the rights to the Japanese audio track for their version. Plot: in 1958 Japan, university professor Tatsuo Kusakabe and his two daughters, Satsuki and Mei, move into an old house to be closer to the hospital where their mother Yasuko is recovering from a long-term illness. Satsuki and Mei find that the house is inhabited by tiny animated dust creatures called Suzuateria small, dark, dust-like house spirits seen when moving from light to dark places. When the girls become comfortable in their new house and laugh with their father, the soot spirits leave the house to drift away on the wind. It is implied that they are going to find another empty house near their natural habitat. One day, Mary sees two white, rabbit-like ears in the grass and follows the ears under the house. She discovers two small magical creatures who lead her through a briar patch and into the hollow of a large camphor tree. She meets and befriends a larger version of the same kind of spirit, which identifies itself by a series of rules that she interprets as Totoro. She falls asleep atop the large Totoro, but when Satsuki finds her, she is on the ground in a dense briar clearing. Despite her many attempts, Mary is unable to show her family Totoro's tree. Her father comforts her by telling her that this is the keeper of the forest, and that Totoro will reveal himself when he wants to. One rainy night, the girls are waiting for their father's bus and grow worried when he does not arrive on the bus they expect him on. As they wait, Mary eventually falls asleep on Satsuki's back and Totoro appears beside them, allowing Satsuki to see him for the first time. He only has a leaf on his head for protection against the rain, so Satsuki offers him the umbrella she had taken along for her father. Totoro is delighted at both the shelter and the sounds made upon it by falling raindrops. In return, he gives her a bundle of nuts and seeds. A bus-shaped giant catwalks at the stop, and Totoro boards it, taking the umbrella. Shortly after, therefore their Euro unregistered trademark S-bus arrives. The girls plant the seeds. A few days later, they awaken at midnight to find Totoro and his two miniature colleagues engaged in a ceremonial dance around the planted nuts and seeds. The girls join in, whereupon the seeds sprout, and then grow and combine into an enormous tree. Totoro takes his colleagues and the girls for a ride on a magical flying top. In the morning, the tree is gone, but the seeds have indeed sprouted. The girls find out that a planned visit by Yasuko has to be postponed because of a setback in her treatment. Satsuki, disappointed and worried, angrily yells at Mary and stomps off. Mary decides to walk to the hospital to bring some fresh corn to her mother. Mary's disappearance prompts Satsuki and the neighbors to search for her. Eventually, Satsuki returns in desperation to the camphor tree and pleads for Totoro's help. Delighted to be of assistance, he summons the catbus, which carries her to where the lost Mary sits. Having rescued her, the catbus then whisks her and Satsuki over the countryside to see their mother in the hospital. The girls perch in a tree outside of the hospital, overhearing a conversation between their parents and discovering that she had been kept in hospital by a minor cold and is otherwise doing well. they secretly leave the ear of corn on the windowsill, where it is discovered by the parents, and return home on the campus. When the campus departs, it disappears from the girl's sight. In the end credits, Mei and Satsuki's mother return home, and the sisters play with other children, with Totoro and his friends as unseen observers. Cast, production, art director Kazuo Oga was drawn to the film when Hayao Miyazaki showed him an original image of Totoro standing in a Satayama. The director challenged Oga to raise his standards, and Oga's experience with My Neighbor Totoro jump-started the artist's career. Oga and Miyazaki debated the palette of the film, Oga seeking to paint black soil from Akita Prefecture and Miyazaki preferring the color of red soil from the Kanto region. The ultimate product was described by Studio Ghibli producer Toshio Suzuki, it was nature painted with translucent colors. Oga's conscientious approach to My Neighbor Totoro was a style that the International Herald Tribune recognized as, updating the traditional Japanese animist sense of a natural world that is fully, spiritually alive. The newspaper described the final product. Set in a period that is both modern and nostalgic, the film creates a fantastic, yet strangely believable universe of supernatural creatures coexisting with modernity. A great part of this sense comes from Oga's evocative backgrounds, which give each tree, hedge and twist in the road an indefinable feeling of warmth that seems ready to spring into sentient life. Oga's work on My Neighbor Totoro led to his continued involvement with Studio Ghibli. The studio assigned jobs to Oga that would play to his strengths, and Oga's style became a trademark style of Studio Ghibli. The opening sequence of the film was not storyboarded, Miyazaki said, the sequence was determined through permutations and combinations determined by the timesheets. Each element was made individually and combined in the timesheets. The ending sequence depicts the mother's return home and the signs of her return to good health by playing with Satsuko and Mei outside. The storyboard depicts the town of Matsuko as the setting, with the year being 1955. Miyazaki stated that it was not exact and the team worked on a setting in the recent past. The film was originally set to be an hour long, but throughout the process it grew to respond to the social context including the reason for the move and the father's occupation. Miyazaki said Totoro is not a spirit, he's only an animal. I believe he lives on acorns. He's supposedly the forest keeper, but that's only a half-baked idea, a rough approximation. The character of Mei was modeled on Miyazaki's niece. Release: after writing and filming Noriko's Currency of the Valley of the Wind and Castle in the Sky, Hayao Miyazaki began directing My Neighbor Totoro for Studio Ghibli. Miyazaki's production paralleled his colleague Isao Takahata's production of Grave of the Fireflies. Miyazaki's film was financed by executive producer Yasuyoshi Tokuma, and both My Neighbor Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies were released on the same bill in 1988. The dual billing was considered one of the most moving and remarkable double bills ever offered to a cinema audience. In 1993, Tokuma Japan Communications US subsidiary released the first English-language version of My Neighbor Totoro, with the title My Friend Totoro. However, because of his disappointment with the result of the heavily edited English version of Noriko's Currency of the Valley of the Wind, Miyazaki would not permit any part of the movie to be edited out, all the names had to remain the same, the translation had to be as close to the original Japanese as possible, and no part of the movie could be changed for any reason, cultural or linguistic, despite creating problems with some English viewers, particularly in explaining the origin of the name Totoro. It was produced by John Daly and Derek Gibson, with co-producer Jerry Beck, and was available on VHS and Laserdisc. This was the only United States home video release of the film from Tokuma. Disney's English-language version premiered on October 23, 2005. It then appeared at the 2005 Hollywood Film Festival. The Turner Classic Movies cable television network held the television premiere of Disney's new English dub on January 19, 2006, as part of the network's salute to Hayao Miyazaki. The Disney version was initially released on DVD on March 7, 2006, but is now out of print. A reissue of Totoro, Castle in the Sky, and Keys delivery service featuring updated cover art highlighting its Studio Ghibli origins was released by Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment on March 2, 2010, coinciding with the US DVD and Blu-ray debut of Ponyo. As is the case with Disney's other English dubs of Miyazaki films, the Disney version of Totoro features a star-heavy cast, including Dakota and Elle Fanning as Satsuko and Mei, Timothy Daly as Mr. Kusakabe, Pat Carroll as Granny, Lisa Longer as Mrs. Kusakabe, and Frank Welker as Totoro and Catbus. The songs for the new dub retained the same translation as the previous dub, but were sung by Sonia Isaacs. Critical reception: My Neighbor Totoro has received positive reviews from film critics. Review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes calculated a score of 92% based on 37 reviews from film critics, with an average score of 8.3/10. Film critic Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times identified My Neighbor Totoro as one of his great movies, calling it one of the lovingly handcrafted works of Hayao Miyazaki. In his review, Ebert declared My Neighbor Totoro is based on experience, situation and exploration, not on conflict and threat, and described its appeal. It would never have won its worldwide audience just because of its warm heart. It is also rich with human comedy in the way it observes the two remarkably convincing, lifelike little girls. It is a little sad, a little scary, a little surprising and a little informative, just like life itself. It depends on a situation instead of a plot, and suggests that the wonder of life and the resources of imagination supply all the adventure you need. The 1993 translation was not as well received as the 2006 translation. Leonard Clady of the entertainment trade newspaper Variety wrote of the 1993 translation, that My Neighbor Totoro demonstrated adequate television technical craft that was characterized by muted pastels, homogenized pictorial style and a vapid storyline. Clady described the film's environment, obviously aimed at an international audience. The film evinces a disorienting combination of cultures that produces a nowhere land more confused than fascinating. Stephen Holden of the New York Times described the 1993 translation as very visually handsome, and believed that the film was very charming, when dispensing enchantment. Despite the highlights, Holden wrote, too much of the film, however, is taken up with stiff, mechanical chit-chat. Matthew Leyland of Sight and Sound reviewed the DVD released in 2006. Miyazaki's family fable is remarkably light on tension, conflict and plot twists, yet it beguiles from beginning to end. What sticks with the viewer is the every kid credibility of the girls' actions as they work, play and settle into their new surroundings. Leyland praised the DVD transfer of the film, but noted that the disc lacked a look at the film's production, instead being overabundant with storyboards. My Neighbor Totoro ranked number 41 in Empire magazine's The 100 Best Films of World Cinema in 2010. A list of the greatest animated films compiled by Terry Gilliam in Time Out ranked the film number 1. A list of the greatest animated films compiled by the editors of Time Out ranked the film number 3. Philip E. Wenner makes a case for the film being an example of alternative history. The main character of the film, Totoro, ranked 24th on IGN's Top 25 Anime Characters. Cultural impact. My Neighbor Totoro helped bring Japanese animation into the global spotlight, and set its writer-director Hayao Miyazaki on the road to success. A film's central character, Totoro, is as famous among Japanese children as Winnie the Pooh is among British ones. The Independent recognized Totoro as one of the greatest cartoon characters, describing the creature, at once innocent and awe-inspiring. King Totoro captures the innocence and magic of childhood more than any of Miyazaki's other magical creations. The Financial Times recognized the character's appeal. Totoro is more genuinely loved than Mickey Mouse could hope to be in his wildest not nearly so beautifully illustrated fantasies. Totoro and characters from the movie play a significant role in the Ghibli Museum, including a large cat bus and the Straw Hat Cafe. The environmental journal Ambio described the influence of My Neighbor Totoro. It has served as a powerful force to focus the positive feelings that the Japanese people have for Satayama and traditional village life. a film's central character Totoro was used as a mascot by the Japanese Totoro Hometown Fund campaign to preserve areas of Satayama in the Saitama Prefecture. The fund, started in 1990 after the film's release, held an auction in August 2008 at Pixar Animation Studios to sell over 210 original paintings, illustrations, and sculptures inspired by My Neighbor Totoro. Totoro has made cameo appearances in multiple Studio Ghibli films, including Pompoko, Ki's Delivery Service, and Whisper of the Heart. Additionally, various other anime series and films have featured cameos, including one episode of the Gainax TV series His and Her Circumstances. Totoro has also had cameo appearances in various non-Japanese works, including on Comedy Central's Drawn Together and in the Imaginationland episodes of South Park as a background character, in Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, brief lives in which delirium blows bubbles into a number of impossible shapes, including a Totoro holding an umbrella. My Neighbor Totoro is also parodied in the South Park episode Mysterion Rises and a couple of scenes where Cartman plays on the belly of the Dark Lord Cthulhu and later flies on the interdimensional monster to the tune of the iconic end credit song from the film's soundtrack. Miyazaki also uses Totoro as a part of his Studio Ghibli company logo. Volume 9 of the Gintama manga has a spoof of the film entitled My Neighbor Pedro. Also, the Samurai Jack episode Jack and the Creature, and the Bob's Burgers episode An Indecent Thanksgiving Proposal pay homage to this film. A Totoro plush makes an appearance in Pixar's Toy Story 3. In the video game Ni no Kuni, an NPC called My Neighbor Totoro can be found once the tournaments in Solasium start. While not a cameo, the usage of the name is attributed as an Easter egg. Studio Ghibli co-produced the game with Level 5. A main belt asteroid, discovered on December 31, 1994, was named 10,160 Totoro after the film's central character. In 2013 a velvet worm species Eoporipatus Totoro, recently discovered in Vietnam, was named after Totoro, following the request of Pavel V. Kvertonov, Dward A. Galoyan and Igor V. Palko. The species is named after the main character of the cartoon movie Oe My Neighbor Totoro by Hayao Miyazaki, who uses a many-legged animal as a vehicle, which according to the collectors resembles a velvet worm. Media, books, a 4-volume series of anime manga books, which use color images and lines directly from the film, were published in Japan in May 1988 by Tokuma. The series was licensed for English-language release in North America by Viz Media, which released the books from November 10, 2004, through February 15, 2005. A 111-page picture book based on the film and aimed at younger readers was released by Tokuma on June 28, 1988 and, in a 112-page English translation, by Viz on November 8, 2005. A 176-page art book containing conceptual art from the film and interviews with the production staff was released by Tokuma on July 15, 1988 and, in English translation, by Viz on November 8, 2005. Anime short, Mary and the Kittenbus is a 13-minute sequel to My Neighbor Totoro, written and directed by Miyazaki. Chika Sakamoto, who voiced Mary in Totoro, returned to voice Mary in this short. Hayao Miyazaki himself did the voice of the granny cat, as well as Totoro. It concentrates on the character of Mary Kusakabe from the original film and her adventures one night with the Kittenbus and other cat-oriented vehicles. Originally released in Japan in 2003, the short is regularly shown at the Ghibli Museum, but has not been released a home video. It was shown briefly in the United States in 2006 to honor the North American release of fellow Miyazaki films Spirited Away and at a Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation fundraiser a few days later. Soundtrack: The Tonari no Totoro soundtrack was originally released in Japan on May 1, 1988 by Tokuma Shoten. The CD primarily features the musical score used in the film composed by Joe Hisaishi, except for 5 vocal pieces performed by Azumi Inu. It has since been re-released twice, once on November 21, 1996, and again on August 25, 2004. All music composed by Joe Hisaishi. Notes. See also, Japan, Our Homeland and My Miracle. References. External links. Official U.S. website, My Neighbor Totoro at Anime News Network's Encyclopedia, My Neighbor Totoro at the Internet Movie Database, My Neighbor Totoro at AllMovie, My Neighbor Totoro at Rotten Tomatoes, Mary and the Kitten Bus at the Internet Movie Database, Mary and the Kitten Bus at naujasar.net, entry in the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction.